The autumn sun hung low over Central Park as Jim Carrey walked aimlessly along the winding path, hands buried in his jacket pockets, his usually animated face subdued and contemplative. At 59, he had achieved everything he'd ever dreamed of: fame, fortune, critical acclaim, yet he felt more lost than ever. The laughter that once filled his life seemed hollow now, echoing in the empty spaces of his sprawling Malibu mansion. His latest film had wrapped 3 weeks ago, another box office hit, but watching the final dailies had left him with an overwhelming sense of emptiness. The faces on screen seemed like strangers performing elaborate pantomimes for an audience that would never truly know them. Lost in these dark thoughts, Jim almost didn't notice the elderly couple on a weathered wooden bench ahead. They sat close together, the woman's silver hair catching the afternoon light as she leaned against her companion's shoulder. The man had his arm wrapped protectively around her, gently stroking her fingers. 63 years tomorrow, the woman was saying softly. Can you believe it, Harold? Harold chuckled warmly. Feels like yesterday you said yes to that nervous young man with the crooked tie. Their genuine laughter made Jim feel something twist in his chest. When was the last time he'd laughed like that? Unable to help himself, Jim approached. Excuse me, I couldn't help but overhear. 63 years? That's incredible. The couple looked up, recognition flashing across their faces, but instead of excitement, they simply smiled with genuine warmth. Please, sit, Harold said, patting the bench. You look like a man who could use some company. Jim settled beside Harold. I'm Jim. Harold. And this is my wife, Eleanor. Eleanor leaned forward, eyes twinkling. We know who you are, dear. Our granddaughter made us watch that movie where you talk out of your bottom. Despite everything, Jim found himself genuinely smiling. Ah, Ace Ventura. Not exactly my finest artistic moment. Perhaps not, Harold said thoughtfully. But you made a lot of people laugh. There's value in that. After a comfortable silence, Jim turned to face them. Can I ask you something? How do you do it? Stay together so long, I mean. Stay happy? Eleanor and Harold exchanged a look. Eleanor reached over to pat Jim's knee. Oh, sweetheart, who said anything about staying happy all the time? Jim blinked, surprised. Harold nodded seriously. Happiness isn't a destination, son. It's more like weather. Sometimes sunny, sometimes stormy, sometimes just ordinary Tuesday morning gray. But the secret, Eleanor continued, is learning to dance in all kinds of weather. We've been through everything: lost jobs, lost parents, lost a baby. Her voice caught, and Harold's arm tightened around her. We've been angry, disappointed, scared, broke, times when staying together felt impossible. So why did you? Jim asked. Eleanor smiled, decades of wisdom in her lined face. Because we learned that love isn't a feeling, dear. Feelings come and go like clouds. Love is a choice. A daily choice to show up, to be present, to choose each other, even when you don't particularly like each other. But what about when you're alone? Jim asked, his question revealing more than he'd intended. Then you learn to choose yourself. Eleanor said gently, to show up for your own life with the same commitment you'd show for someone else. I used to think success would make me happy, Jim admitted. But it's like chasing shadows. The more I achieve, the emptier I feel. Harold nodded knowingly. I was a teacher for 40 years. Spent 20 years climbing that ladder before I realized I was missing the whole point connection. The moment when a struggling student finally understood, the day a shy kid found courage. The real stuff. Eleanor leaned forward earnestly. You've spent your life making people laugh, Jim. Maybe the question isn't whether it makes you happy, but whether it makes you feel connected to something larger than yourself. I think I lost that connection, Jim said, watching a squirrel scamper up an oak tree. I became so focused on being Jim Carrey that I forgot who I was underneath. So who are you? Harold asked simply. Underneath it all? Jim opened his mouth, then closed it. I don't know. I think that's the problem. Eleanor took his hand in both of hers. Then maybe that's where you start. Not with who you should be, but with who you are right now, in this moment. Confused? Jim offered with self-deprecating laugh. Searching, Harold corrected gently. And that's not a bad place to be. Some of the most important journeys begin with admitting you're lost. As the afternoon light began to fade, Eleanor shared her story of breaking an engagement to marry Harold instead. I wasn't happy with my first fiancé. I kept waiting for happiness to arrive, like a delayed package. But when Harold asked me to dance, I felt present, like I was actually in my own life instead of watching it happen. How do you know what matters? Jim asked. You feel it, Eleanor said simply. Not in your head, but deeper, in your chest, in your bones. Jim closed his eyes, accessing that deeper knowing. What did he actually want? The answer came quietly. To matter, to connect, to be seen and known, not just admired from a distance. I think I want to matter to people, really matter, not just entertain them. You already do, Eleanor said softly. Every person who laughed during a difficult time, every child who imitated your silly faces, you mattered to them. But it doesn't feel like enough. Nothing ever does, Harold said gently. That's the human condition. The trick is learning to appreciate what is while working toward what could be. As the sun painted the sky orange and pink, Jim reflected on projects that had truly excited him, films that explored human complexity, that challenged him to dig deeper. Maybe I've been thinking about it wrong, he said. Instead of asking what will make me happy, maybe I should ask what will make me grow. Now you're talking, Harold approved. Growth is uncomfortable, but it's where life happens. Do you ever feel like you're pretending? Jim asked. Like the person everyone sees isn't really you? Every day, Eleanor admitted. We all have different versions of ourselves. The question is whether any feel authentic to who you are inside. Then you start small, Harold said. Find one person, one situation where you can be a little more honest. Build from there. Jim gestured to encompass the three of them. This talking like this feels more like me than anything I've done in years. Then maybe that's your starting point, Eleanor suggested. More conversations that don't require you to be on. A comfortable silence fell as they watched the sky's transformation. Jim felt genuine peace, not forced calm, but being exactly where he needed to be. We should head home, Harold said eventually, though reluctantly. I'm glad I found you two, Jim said. I needed this more than I knew. Sometimes the universe puts people in our path exactly when we need them, Eleanor said. The trick is being open to receive the gift. As they rose from the bench, Jim felt strange reluctance to say goodbye. These strangers had given him perspective, connection, a sense that his struggles were part of the larger human experience. Thank you, he said simply. Harold clasped his shoulder. Take care of yourself, son. Remember, it's okay not to have all the answers. Sometimes the questions are more important. Eleanor kissed his cheek. Be gentle with yourself, dear. You're doing better than you think. Jim watched them walk away, their connection visible in how they moved together, adjusted to each other's pace. He remained on the bench as darkness settled, thinking about their conversation. It had shifted something fundamental in his understanding. He wasn't broken, he was human, searching, growing. The emptiness wasn't failure, but an invitation to dig deeper. For the first time in months, Jim felt hopeful about tomorrow. As he finally stood to leave, he made a mental note to return to this bench, not waiting for another encounter, but to remember this moment when he'd rediscovered something essential about himself. Walking back through the darkening park, Jim Carrey smiled, not the practiced smile of red carpets, but the quiet, genuine smile of a man who had remembered who he was beneath all the noise. The park bench sat empty behind him, waiting for the next lost soul who might need its particular magic.